Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of On the Couch with Creatives. I'm in the UK, so I say good morning, but good afternoon or good evening if you're anywhere else in the world. On the Couch is part of the offering for the Creatives Group, a professional network for creative professionals everywhere. Together, we help connect you with other creatives and help you grow and develop your creative business. But this is On the Couch. So Julie, who have we got on the couch today?
Well, today we have James Davison. He's an author and the owner and founder of Progressive Play, which is an independently driven creative media studio with a focus on creating family-friendly products such as illustrated picture books, social impact games, and short-form animation. And the purpose is to use fictionalized storytelling to address real-world social issues such as mental health and representation and acceptance. Progressive Play empowers children, their guardians, and teachers to be able to talk about difficult topics through the power of storytelling. Welcome to James. James, you yourself are coping with a lot of diagnosed neurodiverse conditions. Tourette syndrome, non-epileptic attack disorder, and affective dysregulation. You know, these are words that most people have never heard of before. Could you kick off by describing to us what actually are the conditions all about?
So probably the most well-known about is Tourette syndrome, because there's been a number of people who have spoken in the public eye who have spoken about it. But I suffer from both vocal and physical tics. So the vocal tics meaning that I can pick and say certain phrases that I'm not meaning to, and often sometimes they do have offensive connotations, but not always. Majority of my tics come from films. And then because of my tics, I can also my brain sort of compartmentalizes. So sometimes subconsciously my brain is doing the work of don't tick, don't tick, don't tick, but then that can jam up the other part of my brain, which causes me to have a stutter or a stammer. The way I sort of see it is like it's almost like a pressure gauge. Sometimes you have to release the valve, otherwise you'll just things will boil over, and then I'll have lots of tics, or relating to my other condition, non-epileptic fits. So it presents a lot like that I'm having an epileptic fit. The difference is that that's more epilepsy is a neurological condition, so there is actually something in the brain that's causing them to black out and have a fit, whereas mine's neuropsychological. So it's my psychology creating this reaction. So it's almost similar to almost like an extreme panic attack. So I don't black out when I'm having a fit, and I do get a warning, unlike people who have epilepsy. Um, but I'm just unresponsive for the period of time that I'm having a fit or seizure, and they can vary in intensity and length. Sometimes I've gone for a couple of hours. Sometimes they could go for a few minutes. I can also have them in my sleep, and I don't usually find out about them until the next morning and being like, oh, why does my leg hurt? Oh, that's why, because I've had a seizure and managed to pull a muscle, or I just wake up having a reasonable amount of time to sleep, and then just feeling drained and not knowing why, and then the dots connect themselves. My last condition is affective dysregulation, which um, greatly affects my mood. So I can have quite big moods. So when I'm happy, I'm really happy. When I'm not so much, I'm really not really not happy. And then sometimes I can swing between the two quite dramatically, but not to the extent of like someone who has like bipolar disorder. But it can still uh, d- 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 it's something that I'm now that I've had the condition for a long time, I'm something it's something I'm more aware of, and so I try and manage it as best as I can. But as I do with all my conditions, but every day is a new adventure.
So James, that's quite a lot for you to deal with, these various conditions that can happen at any time. Well, any time, I guess, and even as you're sleeping, as you're saying, if you have a bad night, you're going to be absolutely exhausted the following day. How has this impacted you, or how did this perhaps make you go along the path that you've gone along now, being self-employed? Because obviously I imagine being an employed person, it's quite hard to, if you had to get up and do a 9 to 5 job. Do you find it easier working for yourself, or does it affect your motivation?
Um, excuse me. Yeah, it's both. It has definitely affected me in terms of every day is different, and like I can go through periods of when I'll have quite a few fits or seizures in a week, and then I could go through periods where I don't have any, or they're at least less severe. But I know for when I first so I probably had a lot of my some of my conditions, specifically Tourette's, when I was in high school, but it went undiagnosed because I used to have what people would refer to as cold shivers. So yeah, so I just shake, but I'd do it 2, 3, 4 times in quick succession, then and then it'd go away. But it wasn't until I was 18 when I had my first non-epileptic fit, so I just started shaking and then just couldn't stop. Um, and so that got the ball rolling on for me to be able to get my diagnosis. But I know, and then subsequently later, I started developing vocal vocal tics, and then it became clear, okay, this is the condition that you have. Um, it probably did affect me in high school because now that I know that I'm um, neurodiverse, I can sort of see, I can reflect back on things that happened early in my life and be like, oh, okay, now I can sort of join those dots together. And since knowing that I am neurodiverse, I've saw and heard a lot about how neurodiversities children and young people with neurodiverse conditions, they're more likely to be expelled from school, which I was. um, but I still managed to go to college and then later university. But my attendance for both could sometimes be sporadic because of the nature of my conditions. And then also when I first diagnosed, I was very um agoraphobic. I didn't want to go outside really because I was always conscious of I don't want a ticket in an appropriate time to the wrong person, not knowing how they're going to react. But also then I had the added factor of, oh, I could have a fit when I'm out in public, which subsequently happened. And when I was at college, and it was, it's kind of a distressing thing to have to go through, especially something as public as that. Um, but in terms of professionally, it also it did so at the moment I'm viewed as having a limited capacity to work. Like generally speaking, like I am fit and healthy, but because of the nature of my conditions, it could vary from day to day. And there were times when I was trying to have regular work, where I could have a a fit or seizure the night before or the morning of me supposed to go into work, and then having to call up and saying I'm unavailable today, and so therefore I didn't get didn't go into work, didn't get paid. So but but part of me always knew that I wanted to be in the creative industries in some form or fashion, and then because I've always been a big fan of storytelling in all its forms. So games, film, TV, music. I've sort of dabbled in all of them at various points in my life, and so I wanted to do something creative. Then, because of the nature of my conditions, I thought going into a creative industries would allow me that flexibility to be able to work around my conditions. And then also, I found out I was going to be a father for the first time. I'm now 4 times over. That's when I got the motivation to go to university, and then the through my journey through university, I it sort of came solidified that I did want to start my own business, and um, having a family, having my conditions. Uh, as I said, I want to be flexible to be able to manage everything that's going on, and so it works for me.
Yeah, and I think, considering your conditions and the fact that you would just become a new father, or becoming a new father, and you managed to go through university and to get a degree, power to you. I mean, I think that's just
Yeah.
amazing by itself, to be honest.
Degree and masters. My second child was born during my masters.
Wow.
There you go. Don't ever think you can't do it, people, because you can. if you have the where there's a will, there's a way, so to speak. So tell us about your journey into being self-employed, and the books and games that you've created.
Yeah, well, thankfully, there's Mindy's Journey. That is my first children's book. It's an allegorical tale about a girl, Mindy, who's suffering from a period of depression, who um, who befriends a star whilst lost and alone in a cave, and the star is symbolic of somebody's support network helping through that period of distress. It started out as a game idea because, as I said, I went to university. That's what my undergraduate was in, because, as I said, like I've loved all different types of creative works, and I thought games combined a number of the different vocations into one. Essentially, you have music, you have the art itself, and then also just being a lover of video games. Um, I thought
Don't video games trigger epileptic fits?
uh, well, mine aren't. Uh, I don't get, because mine's non-epileptic. I'm not triggered in the same way. And if a lot of games, if there is a lot of flashing images, there will be a disclaimer beforehand, like to be wary of it, because even when booting up my games console, it does give you a thing about photosensitivity. So it would be up to the individual to then make that choice. But yeah, I went to the University of Wolverhampton, I initially went with like a very specific idea of like, these are the games that I want to make, which were very much the games that I played myself, specifically like the Final Fantasy series, is one that's close to my heart. So I thought those are the kinds of games that I want to make. And then through my through the period of going through that course, that changed. Specifically when it came to our contextual studies modules. There's a book by Mary Flanagan called Values at Play in Digital Games, and it spoke a lot about that all games, regardless of delivery platform or genre, have values that they promote to their audiences, whether that's done consciously on behalf of the designer or not. And so reading that and then talking more about the contextual subjects around games, it really sort of recontextualized how I felt about games, and then sort of made me reevaluate what games that I wanted to make. And then being a dad, I wanted to be able to be able to play games with my little one, and both of us be able to share that experience, but also then be able to learn and grow from that experience. Because I had also watched like the indie game movie where it follows some of the some various individuals from within the game industries that trying to get their indie game made, and it gives you background on each of them. And there was one particular interview about with one of the subjects, and he had talked about his experiences through childhood and feeling othered, and then seeing like similarities in his niece's, I think it was his niece's experience, and then wanting to create a game for her, but then also drawing from his own experiences. So the combination of the two, plus going more in depth into stuff like social impact games and games, looking at organizations like Games for Change, it's sort of over the period that's started to sow the seed more and more that now I want to make games that address very specific issues, but can still be palatable to all audiences. Um, and then when I did my master's, which was in digital and visual communications, that was a more broad course. So we had people from all different specialities and that, and we did a, a specific lecture on animation. I've always been a fan of animation. My family joked that, oh, it's good that you got children now, so you'd have an excuse to watch all those cartoons that you like to watch.
I don't need an excuse.
Yeah, that's how I felt. But like specifically, like Pixar is a company that I love because of their ability to be able to take these very complex themes and do it in a way that both audiences and both children and adults and people of all audiences can gain something from it. And when you you enjoy it as a child, and then when you watch them when you're older, you can gain something a new perspective on it. And I started to think, oh, I'd love to be able to take that sort of storytelling and apply it to games. So originally, when I did start thinking about self-employment, that was the goal, to be able to create my own game studio. And then I from the university, I did the School for Social Entrepreneurs program, which is run by Lloyd's Bank. That was a bit of a grueling application process. I didn't get on the first time. It was only on my second attempt that I managed to get approved for the program. It was whilst I was on there, I started to feel like with my MA, I continued to design games, but I had a lot of bad experiences throughout that, issues with the games that I was designing themselves, issues within the family, and then issues with some of the on the course itself. So those combined really affected my confidence. And then also when I was going on into my cohort, where I was surrounded by a lot of very admirable people who were already in some cases been running their own businesses for a period of time, and had gotten like grant funding from like the national lottery, and had X amount of employees, and here's me with just the idea of something, not really knowing how I'm going to achieve it. I did feel a lot of imposter syndrome, and so the two of those combined meant I was in a very low place for a long period of time. But then that's when I sort of started to think about, okay, what can I do? Like, I can't just sit in this forever. And one of the things I sort of got challenged about, both through university and then also on the SSE program, is are the children going to be able to, like, you have these great ideas about the kind of games that you want to make, but will they be too focused on the gameplay and not appreciate the messaging that you're trying to get through? So then that's when I had started to think, well, what's the easiest way I can explain the story to a child and then understand it? So I started reciting Mindy's journey as a bedtime story for my eldest, and then slowly after that, well, she said, "I think you should make it into a book, Daddy. I think I'd like to share it with my friends, and I think they'd really like it." And then after a while, I was like, "Okay, maybe I will, Lily. Okay." So then I started the the process of um turning Mindy's journey, which started as a game concept, into a children's book. Um, Thinking, sorry, hoping that, like, I still has aspirations of being able to adapt my works into games and animation, as but this felt like something that I could. Games can be a very volatile. Making games can be a very versatile um process. You never know when you're programming it, if everything's going to go right, and then if it doesn't, then you have to sort of scramble to try and make it work, and then but you never know if everything's going to work the way in which you wanted. And even when I was presenting my work to family or friends, or as part of my exhibition showcases for uni, like, I was very, very pleased to be able to see people interacting with my works, but there was still like, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. Whereas I thought this would be a more simple and straightforward process, and I was wrong. But I'm still very pleased with how it's turned out, and it's also been very gratifying to be able to show my girls, like, I had an idea of something, and now I have that something for here for people.
Yeah.
So
Um,
people can, parents and teachers, they can go onto your website, Progressive Play, and they can download, or do they put in orders and you post them? How does it work?
so at the moment, for paperback, it would be on www.progressiveplay.store, and that's for shipping within the UK only at the moment. But for those internationally or who just prefer digital ebooks, both mine and my daughter's book, The Magic Bunny, are both available on Amazon as digital ebooks, and both books are available on my website as for paperback. But you can also gain access to them through my Facebook or Instagram. Facebook at Progressive Play, and Instagram at Progressive Play _ JAY.
And the details have been going along the screen as we talk.
Why
Okay.
do you think that your stories and your games actually help children with neurodiverse conditions? How do you feel it helps them?
Well, with Mindy's journey, specifically, it's reminding people that there are others out there to help you, and like, periods of depression is something that affects all of us, to obviously to varying different degrees, but everybody, like, I've talked about some of my challenges, but everybody faces challenges of some form of function. But it's showing that, you know, that with the right support, you can get through it, and you'll grow from that process. And then also, like, encouraging them just to be able to reach out and talk to others about how they're feeling. Like, there's a specific um part in the story where it says that they would soon learn the importance of listening to one another, because if Mindy pushed herself too hard, she'd have to stop, rest, and recover. Um, so again, knowing that you can reach out. And in when I have done readings or other speaking events, I have shared my own story as to be able to say, like, yes, this is something that affects me, and has affected me as an adult. Like, there's periods where I still feel uh, sad, angry, or scared, but as the last line of the book uh, reads, like, there's always someone out there who cares, and it's encouraging them to reach out and talk about it, because as a as a parent, you want to be able to hope that, like, you've raised your child so that when they become an adult, like, that they have all the things that they need in their toolkit to be able to support themselves, and, like, to thrive. Like, that doesn't mean just, like, in terms of business, or like their employment or social status. It also means, like, their wellness, their um and, like, in my research that that I've done, when wanting to start my business, like, looking at other organizations like Young Minds and their sort of reports, and their in their works, they say that, like, majority of adults who struggle with mental health conditions, it's likely because those processes started in childhood. And, like, as I said myself, I went undiagnosed, and I didn't even really know. It wasn't until I was almost an adult where I heard of the concept of mental health.
Mm.
Um, so it's if being able to talk about it sooner, hopefully it will encourage them so they will be more well adjusted and more even when they are adults, and then when they're adults, if they're already grown up in that process of talking to others about how they're feeling and knowing in themselves how they're feeling, then they'll be more likely to do so when they're grown up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it is really important. And I think it's really lovely that your daughter's written a book as well, The Magic Bunny, that you got published as well. So she's kind of going on a creative
Yeah.
journey with you. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I just think it's wonderful. And I think that you're pretty wonderful as well,
Yeah.
James, I have to say,
Thank you.
because, you know, all the things that you have achieved, so coping with a range of these issues and managing to go down and hold down sort of 2 university degrees and be a father of 4. I mean, goodness me, I'm a mother of 1, and I nearly have a breakdown at the end of most days, I have to say.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's a tremendous achievement that you're doing. How many books have you published now? Because there's more than one, isn't there?
No, well, it's just these 2 books at the moment.
Okay.
I've written a lot more. But so I've been most recently I've been working with the Princess Trust, who gave me grant funding in order to start printing my first copies of Mindy's Journey, as well as I've managed to get funding to start the ball rolling on subsequent uh, books. It were but all of which again are about mental health, but a challenge tackling it from a different perspective. Um, and then the Magic Bunny, Lily had won a writing competition. So finding my illustrator took a bit of time. Thankfully, I'm very happy with the person who I found, Darren Gate. But I had came across a company, Bear With Us Productions, and they were out of my price range at the time, but I still continued to follow them on social media. And then I saw that they were running a writing competition for children, and I encouraged Lily to have a go. And then she ended up winning. So they produced the book, and then I had asked them, well, I've already started printing and selling my own copies. Would I be able to have um, have Lily's to be able to print and sell um, on her behalf? And thankfully, they're gracious enough to say yes.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
part of the inspiration for that was, although it's not about mental health, it's very different from my works. It's about a magical bunny who can teleport from place to place. Um, for me, to be progressive is also to champion and inspire others to as well as talk about the things that are important to me. So I wanted to be able to champion Lily as well. I'd also say I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, like, I say I have 4 children. Had we have 5 children. Prior to Lily, we had a child who we had lost at 20 weeks due to miscarriage. Um, and that's John. I had mentioned, like, the Final Fantasy series. I have a tattoo with a logo of one of the games, in memory of him. Uh, and that's what I was saying about, like, when we did the contextual studies modules, I had saw I had thought about, like, this what games meant to me, and I initially got the tattoo not fully understanding the full context of why I wanted that specifically, but then realizing, like, in that specific game there is a very significant character death, and it sort of comes out of nowhere and you're not expecting it, and then the rest of the game is sort of, there's the main plot, but alongside that, the characters are learning to deal with the grief that they've just experienced, and so playing that as a young child, I suppose could and having greater context later on, it sort of that sort of helped me be able to process that loss later as an adult. So that's again like tying back into um the experiences that we can have as children can greatly shape who we are as adults.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So on the note of inspiring, helping to inspire others, what would your 3 top tips be for someone who is neurodiverse and who could possibly be struggling, but wanting to make a business in the creative industries? What would your top 3 tips be?
Well, one that has been very important for me is learning what values are important to me. I've mentioned it in terms of the creative work, like my time at uni, but then also like doing the School of Social Entrepreneurs program, as well as a number of different workshops and networking things, and the importance of values as well as in creative work, but also to a business or a brand. And so my personal values are family, creativity, and inclusiveness. So that really helped me when I was making that transition to games to books. As I said, I felt imposter syndrome. Then I also was struggling because I felt like, well, if I'm not making games, um, am I a failure for not doing that? But then it sort of dawned on me, well, the the values that I'm wanting to promote through my works, that's sort of the first thing that's the primary objective. So I would say, like, once you figure out what your core values are, um, as a creative, then the medium almost becomes secondary.
Mm.
In terms of in terms of you know, another thing would be also you have to be very sort of resilient, um, especially if you are neurodiverse. Like you'll face those challenges every day, um, not by choice. So that my conditions have helped me to learn to be resilient, but it's something that I've had to sort of uh, build up as well. The amount of times that I've heard the no, or had applied for something and then not got it, or just been my own worst enemy, thinking that I'm not going to be able to do this. I should just stop. Um, I would encourage if it's important and you feel like, no, this needs to be out in the world, keep going. I know it can be very, very, very difficult to do so, but even with uh, people, friends or family, who aren't in the creative business, outside of um, that, like when they've applied for things and not got them, I've sort of told them, well, given them the advice, well, you're only a failure if you stop trying. So duh, 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 duh. And but it is important to know also when to take a break. As I said in Mindy's journey, I do encourage people to stop, rest, and recover. And there was a woman on my school, part of the SSE cohort, and her business was about mindfulness and wellness. Rebecca, and she had a saying to practice the pause, which I've sort of carried on that baton, and in in terms of my work, but it's something that I also have to remind myself is that, because I'm very much, I like to be doing things, and if I'm not doing things, then I feel as though I start to get into my own head about uh about things and start but I've also experienced burnout from trying to take on too much at once. And so it's the whole thing about mental health and mindfulness and wellness is to know yourself and to allow yourself that time to uh like, you don't build up that resilience just by keep going. The resilience also comes from, no, I have to accept, like, I'm struggling at the moment, but I will get through it, and just allowing yourself that time to be able to take stock of what everything that's happened to you, and then also that's when I'd also encourage people to then think back to their values in that period. And if, as I said, if it's important and it needs to be in the world, you will find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. And we're really glad that you said your values were important, because values are really important to us here at Creatives as well, which is why we always end our show with the Values Jam game, which is,
I saw
it's
these.
one of my
Yeah, they're
favourite bits.
infamous.
My favourite bits. I'm just going to shuffle my lovely silky cards, my lovely cards that I love my cards. Shuffle,
Well,
shuffle, shuffle.
these cards make you think out. I know it sounds like a cliche, but they make you think out of the box.
Yeah.
So just say whatever comes out. Don't even think about it. Just let it flow.
Right, I'm going to run my finger along the cards, and when, if you can see, whoops, can you see it? Just
Yeah,
shout stop, and I'll pick a card.
stop.
Right, what have you chosen? Let's have a look. What have you chosen? Right, the card you picked. Oh, this is a good one for you. Positive impact.
Here you go.
Positive impact. So, as we're creatives on the couch, we're going to ask you about this in a creative fashion. So, James, what does positive impact mean to you? What does it look, feel, and sound like?
Sorry. But I take obviously having a positive impact is something that's very important to me. It's the sort of the driving force of my business. But I often say, um, like, people say, "Oh, you're getting old." I view it as I'm not getting old. I'm growing into the person that I want to be. So progressive play is also, as much as it is, as much as it is my brand. It is also sort of a call to arms to me to be that person that to be progressive, to remind myself that this is the journey you're on. Um, but it's to but that's putting a lot on me, but it's also uh but it's not just about me, it's also about the good that I can put into the world. And I've been great. I've been fortunate enough to be able to go into schools and to talk to children, um, and just feel as though like feel as though I may have made a difference to someone. I remember of the first reading I had the first reading I'd done, right at the end, there was a boy on the front row who had said that I inspired him to start writing his own stories, and that's the most gratifying feeling that I can think of, and it's just lit all of my sort of experiences through, even the negative ones, through positive and negative, have all lit a fire under me to be able to want to help others. Like, I'm a big superhero fan. Uh Spider-Man being my favorite character, and there's the famous line, with great power comes great responsibility, and I think to be a creative and to be a storyteller, you have a lot of power, and so I think it's your responsibility to use it consciously.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the best with progressive play, James. You're obviously doing a wonderful job, and you're enjoying it as you're doing it and inspiring many others. So everybody, if you're interested in the games and the books and the play that James espouses, then go onto his website and have a look. And we're so grateful that you've come on the couch today and
Thank
spoken
you for
to
having
us,
me.
James. It's been wonderful talking to you and hearing what you're up to and how you are coping with your specific conditions and creatively, and then, of course, putting it out into the world and helping others. You are an inspiration.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And on that note, we have to say goodbye. But Julie, James, thank you so much for joining me on the couch. But until next time, bye for now.